and get that information. Fortunately, the tribe down there did have provisions addressing that I could rely on. If the code had not addressed that, I would have had to make a decision whether I was going to look at the state law and apply it, or whether I was going to use custom and tradition, which is always iffy in those areas because they may not have anything to address that, or I was going to rely on federal law. That's why I think it's so important for tribes to enact their own codes to address these issues. When they're looking at the ethical issues, I think the tribal codes can be very helpful in both the substantive area that Sam talked about, but this is where I think the procedural aspect is going to be equally important, is setting forth what steps somebody has to take before they come in and do research within your community. And if you have it by code, they can't say, well, I didn't know I needed to do that. So I think that's the first step. That procedural aspect is very important for establishing that contact that then will give the tribe some authority to exercise that jurisdiction that is so murky in the area of civil matters within Indian country right now. So those procedural aspects, I think, are where the tribe really can have some teeth in how research happens in their community. So for example, you have somebody coming in wanting to do research in the area of DNA, as Sam mentioned. Well, what kind of requirements does a tribe have for that? Is that something that's allowed? Are they just going to follow the IHS guidelines? What are the requirements? They can't just follow the IHS guidelines, but if a tribe has a code provision that is more strict, more stringent than the IRS guidelines, there's an argument to be made that that's going to be applied. That they have something that is more stringent than the federal law, and the tribe's sovereign power will let them apply that code. That's a huge benefit to tribes, to ensure data is not released that is not data that the tribe wants released. Other things that the tribes can do through their codes is include provisions that they have to authorize the distribution of data. Now, I guess I may be a little less concerned about academic freedom in that if the tribe has to give authority for it, they don't have that permission for that academic freedom until that permission is given. Is the way I view it. So I'm less concerned about that academic freedom realm of it. It's not just the data. I think it's that if the tribe says, before using this data, we have to give you permission to use it. They haven't got that permission. I don't think they have the data yet. As Sam mentioned, the problem is going to be enforcement. That's always the big problem. Tribes can have wonderful codes on their books that are very broad, very supportive of tribal jurisdiction. Bob McNally, I talked about this yesterday, that you can have all this wonderful code language, but if the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't have that educational piece to it, when it gets up to the appeal process, you may be unsuccessful at the appellate court system in enforcing those rights. So I think that's why you have to tie it into the public health and safety aspect for tribes. What I view tribal codes as doing is looking at what the expectations of the tribe are. Does the tribe have different expectations for non-member researchers, non-Indian researchers, tribal member researchers? Is there research that may be appropriate for a tribal member to conduct that would not be appropriate for either a non-member or a non-Indian to conduct? Those are the components that can come into your codes and guide people wanting to do research within Indian country. Define what is acceptable practices for the tribe in this area. If there are problems, how is the tribe going to address those problems? And this is where you can have boards. The review boards are one aspect of it. There may be other options for a tribe, depending on the type of research that's being done, that are going to apply. But the underlying, I guess, condition you always have to take into account in any of this is there may be other federal laws out there that are also going to implicate it. So it's not just the tribal law. There may be NAGPRA concerns out there, depending on the type of research you're doing. There may be IHS concerns out there as well that you have to comply with. But the tribe, delineating those in a code, I think is a strong exercise of tribal sovereignty. I view tribal codes as a responsible exercise of tribal leadership. One of the individuals this morning talked about being a selected leader, and I think that is representative of the differences between your tribes. You're going to have tribal leadership that comes from a variety of sources. How that person gets to be in the tribal leadership position is going to vary significantly from tribe to tribe. But the uniform concept is that these are the people that the tribe has somehow chosen to lead their tribe. As that leader, the tribes need to address the codes and address matters for handling how research is going to occur within their communities. I don't think this has to be done in an adversarial setting if there are disputes on it. I think there are other options out there for tribes to handle things that not only comply more closely to tribal customs and traditions, but also I think that promote harmony within your communities. So I don't think the adversarial system is necessarily the way to resolve these disputes. I think the concept of boards is a great idea, as long as those boards are made up of members of the community that have an interest in this and have knowledge of it and know how to handle it. So just having a review board I don't think is going to be sufficient. You need to have a review board that really does know the topic. And that's, I think Sam was talking about going to the conference where he didn't know anything about it, but finding it very interesting and learning about it. So you can certainly learn about it, but it's got to be people that know what the values of your community are on that board. For me, one of the components of doing the research aspect of it is getting those proper endorsements. And I think that that's where tribes have some difficulty in determining who has the authority to give those endorsements. And that's something that your codes can clarify. Those are the components that codes can look at, and determining in various areas that's going to change. But getting those proper endorsements, I think, are very critical in looking at it. I really don't have a lot more to say because Sam did cover a lot of it. I do want to comment on a statement from the TANF chiefs in regards to ethics codes. And what it said is that the traditional values of the tribe are going to be the foundation for ethics standards of tribes. And if tribes don't articulate what their own ethics standards are, then the non-Indian society is going to impose those ethics standards on tribes. And I think that's where the problem lies. So traditional values such as respect for elders and others, respect for the land, life experience, sharing, fairness, responsibility for the community, honoring ancestors, respect for knowledge, respect for nature, self-sufficiency, humor, family relations. Those are pieces that can be included in ethics codes and can reflect your tribal values. But unless the tribal community determines those, I think the non-Indian community is going to impose their values on research, and that's going to perpetuate this continual problem with what needs to be done in Indian country and what's allowed and what isn't allowed. I actually was hoping to get a lot of questions, so I'm happy to take questions at this time. Or we can wait till then. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What is the jurisdiction? What is the power of the ability to rule the tribal sovereignty in acts like No Child Left Behind? do you have any power to say